What's up, everyone? It's Lan here with another episode of the Cheeseheadz Weekly Podcast. It is episode 71, I believe. And today we're going to be going over my way too early 53-man roster prediction like I did last year. And we'll go over that as well as a few pieces of news coming out of Packers minicamp. First day of mandatory minicamp was today, and so we'll go over a few stories coming out of that. But before we get started here, I will just go over some ways you can support the show. We do have Q&As and polls that we post on Spotify every week. Every time an episode comes out, which tends to be Tuesday or Wednesday. It's been Wednesday the last few weeks. That could become the new norm. Who knows? Summer, the schedule is a little bit different for me, so it just depends how things end up. But we do post those every week. There's also a link in the description of every episode on every platform where you can send in a voice message, just a click of a button, and you can send in your voice message, and I can answer any questions you have or object to any arguments you have. And yeah, it's a lot of fun. Promote some discussion on the show. The show is available wherever you get podcasts as well as on YouTube. So you can hit that subscribe button and hit the bell icon as well on YouTube and on Spotify if you'd like to receive notifications every time a new episode drops. You can tell your friends about the show. It'd be much appreciated. You can also rate the show on Spotify. You can rate and review on Apple Podcasts. And you can follow us on social media at Cheeseheadz_weekly. Twitter or X is at Cheeseheadz_W. And you can check out the website, greatcove.net/cheeseheads. And we'll get into it here. So Packers had their first day of minicamp. Now, I didn't mention this earlier, but we did hear earlier, Carrington Valentine has had a terrific offseason so far. He's added weight, added muscle. He was listed as at 189 pounds, I believe. So needed to get a little bigger, especially since this defense is hopefully getting more physical, doing some more press man coverage, that sort of thing. And I mean, he's already quite the feisty corner, but getting a little bit bigger, adding that strength during the offseason is definitely going to help him out. And Matt LaFleur had nothing but praise for him, just the way he competes out there on the field. And yeah, he just goes about everything the right way. And of course, he's in great physical shape as well. Quick notes: Packers did excuse Xavier McKinney, Jair Alexander, and Keyshawn Nixon from minicamp. I'm not sure exactly why that is. I'm sure there was a good reason. They are veterans on the team and participated during OTAs, which were voluntary. So there was plenty of participation there, and that certainly could have been part of the reason why Packers were willing to excuse them from mandatory minicamp. Former Packers tight end Mercedes Lewis is returning to the Bears on a one-year deal. We have Lewis coming back for another year in the NFL. He will just won't leave. I mean, his nickname is Big Dog for a reason, and a great guy. Jordan Love had some good things to say about him as well, and I really enjoyed his time with the Packers. The Packers set their annual family night event for Saturday, August 3rd for all you Wisconsiners that potentially could be attending. It will be on Saturday, August 3. I obviously will not be there as I make my residence in the state of Pennsylvania, but I'm sure it'll be a good time there in Wisconsin, Green Bay. The Packers still have an open roster spot heading into minicamp. who knows when they'll fill that and how they'll fill it. Probably just another, tryout type guy they'll bring in for extra depth at a random position. But it is worth noting. Matt Ryan had some good things to say about Jordan Love, said, quote, "Sky is the limit after a, quote, great first year." So, former quarterback Matt Ryan is expecting great things from Jordan Love, as are we all. So, we will we'll see how that goes. See if he continues his play. I certainly expect him to, but you never know with these sort of things. There has been rumors from mandatory minicamp that the extension, contract negotiations, could be happening pretty soon. Jordan Love was immediately, the first questions he was asked in the locker room after the practice was, when is the contract going to get done? Is he optimistic about it getting done before minicamp? Does he think it's going to be done soon? All of those type of things. And he mostly said a lot of nothing, a little bit of a cat and mouse game going on between him and the reporters. He obviously does not want to go into a lot of detail about it. But when they asked if he thinks it will get done soon, he responded, "Yes, I think it will." And after that, of course, they asked a follow-up question, "What makes you think that?" And he says, "It's what I've heard." So, and they also asked him if he likes being, kept in those discussions, kept in the loop, and obviously he said yes, he does, because who would not want to know about their own contract negotiations and how much money they're going to making at their job? It's something the player would certainly want to know, I would think. Obviously, Brian Gutekunst said last week that they wanted to get the deal done before training camp. It certainly seems to be trending in that direction. Could be happening soon, which is certainly an exciting thing for the Packers and for Packers fans, as they can hopefully lock up their future franchise QB for the foreseeable future. Jordan Love is also calling his own plays in some of the 2-minute drills. He said he liked that. He was able to do that because he can helps him to understand play calls, always kind of be thinking about the next play, and always kind of be locked in and kind of figure out himself what plays work or what plays don't work. Kind of, get that experience under his belt at practice. Zane Anderson had a nice day with Xavier McKinney out. Had 3 interceptions, actually. One was kind of gifted to him on a drop by a receiver. But really good day. And so I'm sure he's happy about that. Could be a core special teamer for the Packers. Played mostly on special teams for them last season. So if he makes the roster, that is likely what he will be doing for the most part. Kenneth Odemegwu, their international player pathway program player, was part of the team last year. Basically, he's playing football for the first time, learning how to play it, and he seems to be coming along quite nicely. Matt Floor says, quote, "I would say it's exponential how much he's improved, which is to be expected when you've never played football before. He's a joy to be around. He's a great dude and can definitely light up the room. He's a little quiet at times, but I think all the guys love him in that locker room." It sounds like a fantastic teammate, and who knows if he'll ever be able to really play in the NFL. But he seems to be enjoying his time with the Packers and making a little bit of money while he's there. Likely he'll be with the Packers again because he can ride along on the practice squad without costing them an extra practice squad spot. He'll likely be with the team all this season. There's been a lot of cross-training on the offensive line. Zach Tom is out, like we mentioned a couple of weeks, or I guess a week ago probably. Tucker Kraft, of course, continues to be out. Zach Tom probably will be out to at least the start of training camp due to his pec injury. They've been trying different combinations. They added Andre Dillard, a free agent that really hasn't worked out anywhere, on a vet minimum deal with no guarantees. I'm not sure if I mentioned that or not. At any rate, he has been with the starting group with Zach Tom out, as well as rookie first-rounder Jordan Morgan. They've both taken snaps at right tackle. Dillard also played some at left tackle, along with Rasheed Walker at left tackle. Morgan has taken some snaps at right guard, along with Sean Ryan. And I believe Sean Ryan has taken some snaps at center. The only guy who really hasn't moved around at all is Josh Myers, the center. And I don't believe he is in line to move anywhere. If anything happens, he will be a backup center. But my guess is he will be the starting center again this coming season. And of course, the Packers are working to find that best five. And so we will be watching closely to see if first rounder Jordan Morgan is able to crack that best five and see what they do with Sean Ryan at the right guard position, if they make him the starter there, what all happens. Elton Jenkins has not been at every practice. As a veteran, he's gotten some rest days, whatever. He doesn't really need a ton of practice, so they've had other guys rotating in, and so Morgan has been getting plenty of time with the ones. Packers are also experimenting with a video screen at practice. According to Matt LaFleur, he says, quote, "I think you get instant feedback. The more immediate the feedback, the more beneficial it could be. Whether or not we use it in training camp, kind of wait and see. It's something we'd like to explore for the regular season." Jordan Love said, quote, "You can just take a look and see what you'd watch on film, but just right there at practice. So it's pretty cool." So basically they can, watch the plays as they're happening, kind of like you would in an NFL game, So that is kind of nice. And I think it's probably a good idea to keep that around. All right. I guess that's about all we will go with for the news, and I'll get into my 53-man roster prediction. Seems kind of basic, seems kind of obvious at this point. I honestly didn't have a whole lot of issues fitting players that I wanted on in. Yeah, and of course we could have injuries, guys starting out on the PUP list, whatever. As of now, it doesn't seem like we have any of those guys. Tucker Kraft would be one to monitor. I don't think he's going to miss that much time, but he definitely has a little bit of recovery to go. His arm is still in the sling from all reports, while Zach Tom has been doing some warm-ups and different things like that. But I do think Tucker Kraft, at least according to the original timeline, he was not expected to miss any time during the season. But we'll get into it. So on the offense, 25 players. Basically, I'm doing 25 players on the offense, 25 on the defense, and 3 for the special teamers. So for the offense, quarterback, I have 2, Jordan Love and Sean Clifford. There could be a case made for Michael Pratt, the rookie third stringer who they drafted this past draft, and he's made a few plays in OTAs. In the early signs don't look bad at all. He could, compete a little bit for the backup job, but ultimately I think Sean Clifford has a pretty tight hold on that job. Really showed he belonged in the preseason last year and in training camp, and I don't think Pratt will beat him out in his rookie year, but certainly could happen sometime down the road. And, there could be a case made that they keep 3 guys. I think Pratt will be just fine on the practice squad. And I do have a practice squad prediction to make after this. So 2 quarterbacks, Jordan Love, Sean Clifford. At running back, I have 3. I believe that's how it was last year. No, they might have only started out with 2, actually. They might have done that the past 2 seasons, actually. But I do have them starting out with 3. And that would be Josh Jacobs, A.J. Dillon, and Marshawn Lloyd. Now things kind of took a turn. Emmanuel Wilson, I would have thought would be on there as a third running back, but they took Marshawn Lloyd and re-signed A.J. Dillon after the Packers said how they liked him and how he could potentially make a run at being the number 2 running back. They brought in 2 more, including A.J. Dillon, returning him, who, according to all accounts, seems to maybe have shed a little bit of weight, seems to be looking more agile and spry in the early going in shorts and a t-shirt. So for what it's worth, he's looking pretty good. And of course, as ripped as ever. But I think he'll hold on to the number 2 role, at least for now. Marshawn Lloyd is a rookie right now, but he seems to be dynamic. They've been impressed with his athleticism early on in camp. Jordan Love and the coaches have really seemed to be pretty happy with him. So Manuel Wilson will hopefully make it to the practice squad for the Packers. And I'm sure if injuries happen, he would definitely be called up to the active roster. But I think he might have a hard time beating Marshawn Lloyd with his athleticism, and of course A.J. Dillon with his previous experience in the NFL as, a quality number 2 running back. At wide receiver, I'm keeping 6 of them. We have Christian Watson, Romeo Dobbs, Jaden Reed, Dontavian Wicks, Bo Melton, and Malik Heath. And I feel really good about that group right there. And of course, you still got guys that could compete for a spot on the roster, like Grant Dubose. They could potentially keep 7, whatever. They could do a few different things, but Grant Dubose would be one. And of course, Samori Toure still on the roster as well. See if he can get on the 53 again. Hasn't done a whole lot his first few years. First 3 years, I guess, or first 2 years in the NFL, heading into his third. At tight end, we're keeping 4. Luke Musgrave, Tucker Kraft, Ben Sims, and Tyler Davis. Could be a case made that they only keep 3, and Tyler Davis is the odd man out, but we know how much the Packers like him, recovering from the ACL injury. I expect him to be back by the start of the season, and he's a great guy for special teams. So I think he'll probably make the roster, and Ben Sims showed a good bit as a rookie, a good bit of promise, especially as a blocker, but also a little bit as a pass catcher as well. I think he'll be an important part of this team at tight end as well. Of course, Tucker Kraft working his way back from the injury. From what I've heard so far, he should be back by week 1. And so should be a pretty good tight end group there. Offensive line, I'm keeping 10. I have Rasheed Walker, Elton Jenkins, Josh Myers, Sean Ryan, Zach Tom, Jordan Morgan, Andre Dillard, Jacob Monk, Donovan Jennings, and Luke Tenuta. Now, Donovan Jennings is a UDFA that apparently the Packers are pretty high on. He's got some work with the twos at the guard position mainly. I believe that is what he is for the most part, although the Packers seem to like to use their offensive linemen interchangeably. Luke Tenuta is a guy they've had for the past 2 seasons now. Had some injury issues. One of the last 2 years, maybe both. I'm not sure. But he's been kind of a fringe guy for a while at tackle. And I expect, and of course, Caleb Jones is another guy, massive, frame at offensive tackle, who they've had around for a while as well. So it could be a toss-up between those two. I went with Tenuta here. And Jacob Monk was a rookie they drafted. Jordan Morgan, obviously the first-round rookie drafted. They did draft another guy, I believe, in the 7th round, Travis Glover, another pretty big guy. Not super athletic. I wasn't super high on the pick. Probably my least favorite pick out of everyone in the draft, potentially. But, I mean, the Packers picked him. Goody doesn't like to cut his picks, so it's certainly possible that he makes it ahead of Tenuta, or they keep an extra guy, and he makes it on. Or, I mean, Jennings is a UDFA, like I mentioned earlier. So it's possible he is the one cut. But the Packers do have a history of keeping at least one UDFA each year. And I think Donovan Jennings seems to be the guy that they would keep that fits that bill so far here as a undrafted free agent. So that rounds out the offense. I will read off everything again. Quarterback, Jordan Love, Sean Clifford. Running backs, Josh Jacobs, A.J. Dillon, Marshawn Lloyd. Wide receivers, Watson, Christian Watson, Romeo Dobbs, Jaden Reed, Dontavian Wicks, Bo Melton, and Malik Heath. Tight ends, Luke Musgrave, Tucker Kraft, Ben Sims, and Tyler Davis. The offensive line, Rasheed Walker, Elton Jenkins, Josh Myers, Sean Ryan, Zach Tom, Jordan Morgan, Andre Dillard, Jacob Monk, Donovan Jennings, and Luke Tenuta. On the defensive line, I have them keeping 5, and I believe it's the same 5 they kept last year. Kenny Clark, TJ Slayton, Devontae Wyatt, Carl Brooks, and Colby Wooden. Those 5 seem pretty close to, about as close as you can get to locks. Colby Wooden, maybe not. The other 4 certainly seem to be, and I don't see him keeping another one. Looking at the roster at this point. At outside linebacker, I have 5. Rashawn Gary, Preston Smith, Kingsley Enagbari, Lucas Van Ness, Brenton Cox Jr. Again, all of them seem to be pretty close to, well, I'm calling this outside linebacker. Perhaps I should call it defensive end. Because we are moving to a 4-3 base defense. I don't know. It gets all confusing than what I'm used to. Because I've always followed the Packers when they were at a 3-4 defense. Not that the base defense matters a whole lot. It just changes kind of what you call the position. I guess you can call them edge players. So Gary Smith, Enagbari, Lucas Van Ness, Brenton Cox Jr. Brenton Cox Jr. is the only one that I would not consider to be a lock. Enagbari has been one of those surprises for most of us because we thought he tore his ACL. Turns out he didn't even have surgery, and he has been at a full go at OTAs and minicamp so far. Not even a sleeve on the knee. He is in great shape, and it's great to see him out there. So the edge room seems to be pretty healthy, and that certainly explains why they didn't add anyone during the draft. And the depth is looking just fine there yet again. At inside linebacker, I have them keeping 5. I believe I predicted 4 last year, but I have 5. And those 5 are Quay Walker, Edgerrin Cooper, Isaiah McDuffie, Tyron Hopper, and Eric Wilson. Those 5 seem pretty locked and loaded to me. Eric Wilson was re-signed as a veteran during the offseason to play special teams. Veteran presence, and probably could play linebacker in a pinch if they needed to as well, although they would prefer to not have him do that. The 3 starters seem to be Quay Walker, Edgerrin Cooper, and Isaiah McDuffie. Hopper has pretty good athleticism. He's made a few flash plays at OTAs, so I expect him to make the roster. Obviously a rookie draft pick as well, and pretty high one in the 3rd round. They did re-sign guys like Christian Welch, brought back Christian Young, and Keyshawn Banks. Guys that could challenge for another spot potentially. Maybe they'd keep 6, because we do, with a 4-3, there would be 3 linebackers on the field, at least some of the time. So that certainly is a possibility, but I do have them keeping 1 more than I predicted them keeping last year. I'm not sure exactly how many they actually kept. At corner, I have them keeping 5. Eric Stokes, Jair Alexander, Keyshawn Nixon, Carrington Valentine, and Corey Ballantyne. Again, this was pretty easy for me. The only other corner that has a chance, really, it would be Robert Rochelle. I mean, everyone has a chance, but the only one that I have heard has any chance at this point would be Robert Rochelle, mainly a special teamer from last season. So yeah, that's the 5, and I feel pretty good about that. I'm not sure why I put Eric Stokes ahead of Jair Alexander. Normally I kind of put him in, the right order, but Jair Alexander, Eric Stokes, Keyshawn Nixon, Carrington Valentine, and Cordy Ballantyne. I feel pretty good about that room. Safety, I have them keeping 5. I believe I had 6 last year. I think the only change in numbers was inside linebacker and safety. Gave one of the safety spots to the inside linebackers. And I have them keeping 5 at every position group and on the defense. And I have Xavier McKinney, Javon Bullard, Anthony Johnson Jr., Evan Williams, and Keaton Oladapo. So 3 draft picks at safety this past draft. Javon Bullard, I expect to be a day one starter alongside Xavier McKinney, their free agent addition. Anthony Johnson Jr., 7th rounder from last year, will probably slot in there somewhere. He's got a lot of the starter reps early on, as the Packers don't like to, put a lot of their rookies on the field too early in practices like that. You kind of got to earn your playing time, which seems like a good idea to me. Evan Williams, a 4th rounder. Keaton Oladapo is currently dealing with injury. I expect him to be back probably at some point during training camp if everything goes according to plan, recovering from foot surgery during the offseason. I believe he was picked in the 5th round, 6th round range, somewhere in there, and most people are pretty high on him, and I'm sure the Packers are as well. On special teams, kicker and punter, I have them the same as last year, Anders Carlson and Daniel Whelan. I do think Carlson wins out on the kicker competition. In other news, the Packers did request a visit with standout kicker from the UFL, Bates, Jack Bates. I forget his name now. Jake Bates, my bad. Played in the UFL last season, so Jake Bates could potentially be added to the roster, but I do think Carlson will win out, and that's what I want him to do, so that's what I think he'll do, obviously, and hopefully he can take that next step forward and be a reliable kicker for them next season. At punter, I have Daniel Whelan. He's looked fantastic throughout the offseason so far, and he doesn't currently have any competition. I'm not sure why the Packers would give him any competition because he looks really good and had a pretty good season last season as well at punter. At long snapper, Matt Orzik would be the returning vet at long snapper. Did not have a good season at all last season. The Packers brought in UDFA from Wisconsin. So I guess maybe they'll keep 2 of them this year. Peter Bowden from Wisconsin. And so obviously he's a fan favorite and everything. And hopefully he can win the job. As bad as Matt Orzik was, I just went ahead and predicted that Bowden will make the roster. But again, this is all way too early. But it's just it's kind of a fun exercise. If you have any comments or objections to anything, leave that in the comments. Comment on X. I'm pretty active there. Shoot me a DM, whatever it is. Comment on YouTube. I'd be happy to answer your questions. Or just explain myself if you want me to, whatever it may be. So I'll read over the entire thing. At quarterback, Jordan Love and Sean Clifford. At running back, 3 of them, Josh Jacobs, A.J. Dillon, Marshawn Lloyd. At wide receiver, there's 6, Christian Watson, Romeo Dobbs, Jaden Reed, Dontavian Wicks, Bo Melton, and Malik Heath. At tight end, there's 4, Luke Musgrave, Tucker Kraft, Ben Sims, Tyler Davis. At offensive line, 10, Rasheed Walker, Elton Jenkins, Josh Myers, Sean Ryan, Zach Tom, Jordan Morgan, Andre Dillard, Jacob Monk, Donovan Jennings, and Luke Tenuta. On the defensive side of the ball, at defensive line, interior defensive line, Kenny Clark, TJ Slayton, Devontae Wyatt, Carl Brooks, and Kobe Wood. At the end, edge players, defensive ends, whatever you want to call them, Rashawn Gary, Preston Smith, Kingsley Enikbari, Lucas Van Ness, and Brenton Cox Jr. At inside linebacker, we have Quay Walker, Edgerrin Cooper, Isaiah McDuffie, Tyron Hopper, and Eric Wilson. At cornerback, Jair Alexander, Eric Stokes, Keyshawn Nixon, Carrington Ballantyne, Corey Ballantyne. At safety, Xavier McKinney, Javon Bullard, Anthony Johnson Jr., Evan Williams, Katan Oladapo. Special teams, at kicker, we have Anders Carlson. At punter, Daniel Whalen. And long snapper, Peter Bowden. Now for the practice squad. They can keep 16. Here are the 16. At quarterback, Michael Pratt. Running back, Emmanuel Wilson. At wide receiver, Samori Toure and Grant Dubose. None at tight end. At fullback, Henry Pearson. Offensive line, Caleb Jones, Royce Newman, and Travis Glover. Kadeem Telfort would be a candidate to stick around as well, and I certainly could see them cutting one of these guys outright, potentially Royce Newman. I believe they can save some cash, and he has done a lot of nothing since his rookie season, where he provided a few quality starts, but since then he has been not good, and I would not be opposed to the Packers cutting him and potentially keeping a guy like Kadeem Telfort around. On the defensive line, Jonathan Ford still hanging around, and at defensive end, Deslin Alexander, he's been making some plays in OTAs, so while I'm not sure he'll be able to get onto the roster, he should be good enough to at least keep around on the practice squad throughout the season. At inside linebacker, Christian Young, Christian Welch, and Keyshawn Banks. He's listed on ESPN's depth chart as an inside linebacker. I thought maybe he was more of an outside linebacker, but perhaps with the change to 4-3, you want slightly bigger guys to play at defensive end, so he's going to be an inside linebacker. Or it could just be completely wrong, and he was actually an inside linebacker all along, and I just didn't know it. So 3 of them. And then cornerback, I have Robert Rochelle. At safety, Zane Anderson. He certainly is making a case so far. Obviously, it's early to make the active roster, and it's possible, that they could cut someone else and slot him in as a 6th safety, making the roster. Good special teams guy, and has been making some plays on defense here in shorts and a t-shirt. And kicker Greg Joseph. Why not keep an extra kicker around in case you need him? And Greg Joseph has previous starter experience. And, of course, the extra international pathway player practice squad spot is open for the one and only defensive lineman Kenneth Odumegwu. All right, that will do it for my 53-man roster prediction. Like I said, comment anywhere you feel like. Shoot me a DM, Instagram, or X, something like that, and I will answer any questions or comments you have about it. I really enjoy your feedback. That would be fantastic if you could give me that. But that will be all for today, I guess. We got about 30 minutes in today, so not a bad length. Thanks for listening, everybody. Really appreciate all the support I get. And I'll talk to you next week. Go Pack Go.